Alright, I still haven't cleaned up from the other day, from the last video. I'm still working on producing flakes and bifaces for the flint and steel stuff. Okay? So, but I'm going to interrupt the process along with heat treat that I'm working on right now. I'm not going to show the heat treat process just yet, but I will. In this coming week, I'll show you how I sample nodules, how I distinguish what is heatable and what is not heatable, what I experiment with, what I'm clueless about, what I know for sure, and all that stuff about heat treating the way I do it. That's coming. For now, I had a request to work on some Cobden Chert, right? And the request was to work some raw Cobden Chert. Now, it's unusual that I would get a request like that because I thought Cobden did not respond to heat. I thought all of it is worked raw because it's like Hornstone. It's nature's heat treat. Now this, I washed these. They were in my landscaping because I collected this stuff from a friend of mine, or a friend of mine gave me this stuff many years ago, it seems, and it was all dirty. So I had to wash it to see if it's Hornstone or Cobden. I think Cobden is the greener variety, or is more green than Hornstone in many cases. I really don't know the difference. I'm not that good at identification of these different cherts. So I washed them. Now with you, I'm examining these. I think these two might be Hornstone. I'm pretty sure this one is Cobden. And I'm pretty sure this one is Cobden. But anyway, it's nature's heat treat, right? It's one of the things that is naturally heated in nature, of course. Like Hornstone, it does not need heat, and it does not respond to heat. I think this might be Cobden here. Alright, so for sure I know, or to me, it looks like both of these pieces are Cobden, and they're probably from the same batch that I got from a friend of mine. So I'll work these two. And I washed them so I could see clearly what's going on with the colors. Although it could be Hornstone. It's very difficult to tell. I think they're very closely related. Alright, so I said to myself, yeah, that's a good challenge because it gives me an opportunity to look through my landscaping at my house, my old house. I still have a lot of my stuff here. And I got into the yard and started looking around. It gives me a good chance to see what I got. All right. Anyway, I'll work some of this if I can. Not off to a good start. Anyway, I'm doing heat treat stuff right now. And if I had to erase some of those or delete some of those videos. I've started trying to explain heat treating in a organized way. I had to delete those because I'm not organized. I gotta organize it so it doesn't seem like it's just total chaos. The way I heat treat, it is total chaos. I don't do it right on purpose because I don't really get all bent out of shape, or I don't feel bad if I don't do it right. So I'm trying to figure out a way that I can explain it to you guys so that you can do it in a reasonably orderly fashion. Believe it or not, that's extremely difficult for me to do. It's not an exact science. Heat treat, even if I showed you exactly how I do it in an extremely orderly way, Your results may be completely different from mine if you follow the same exact recipe, exact everything, even if the stones come down to, you collected your stones from the areas that I collected mine. They look exactly the same. They knap exactly the same. The temperatures are exactly the same. You could end up with differences in your heat treat that I did not anticipate. So how do I make it so that those differences are minimized? I've been racking my brain and trying to figure out, how do I make those differences minimal so that you have a baseline to work with. And all I've come up with is, I'm not going to be able to come up with a baseline. Yep, I'm just not going to be able to. There is no baseline in heat treating. Everybody's results will be slightly different. Just like knapping. There's no baseline in flint knapping either. You could be using the same material, same technique, same tools. I can send you my tools. I can send you my rock. I can tell you to watch nobody else's videos but mine, and you still would have different results using the exact same everything. Yeah. I can't minimize that sort of thing. So I'm going to have to just show you the way I do it without leaving out steps. So that's the challenge. I keep forgetting things. Like I forget to label something, or I'll call something by the wrong name. I'm thinking I'm saying one thing and I'm actually saying another thing. That kind of problem also. And I've attempted to do the heat treating video over the weekend over and over again, and now I'm confused about what I've said and what I haven't said, what I'm repeating and not repeating. So I end up repeating everything more than twice. I'll repeat 2, 3, 4 times because I can't remember if I just said it or I said it earlier, or if I didn't say it just now. That kind of thing. This way, I usually don't plan videos in advance or do multiple takes, because I forget what I said just a little while ago. Did I say that? Should I repeat it? Well, the safest thing is just to repeat it. If I'm not sure if I said it, I'll just repeat it. And the more times I do it, the more unsure I am if I just said it or not. Because I think I just said it, but it could have been a previous deleted video, and I didn't say it. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, so I had to repeat it. Okay. So those are the issues I'm running into with the heat treat. I know I've gotten that question many times. Can you please just explain the heat treating in an orderly fashion, in a way that a 5-year-old can understand, and in a way that minimizes differences in the way people heat treat, so that I have a baseline to work with, so I know where I am, so I'm not in limbo. Yeah, I'm trying really hard to do it. Trying very hard to do it. And it seems like the best way for me to do it is just study and write down my process before I do the video, study my notes beforehand, and don't refer to my notes, and just wing the video. Just wing it. And if I forget something, I forget something, but I usually don't forget something if I study it just before the video. So that's what I'm going to do. I guess it's the habit of cramming and taking tests. It has programmed my brain to just cram the information and then regurgitate it right afterwards. Now, I did not study up on Cobden Chert before this video. I'm pretty sure this is Cobden. If your results vary, it could be you, or the differences in the stone. Nobody knows. You just have to experiment on your own. If you're depending on me, the way I work it, and expecting to copy everything exactly, and then getting the exact same result, you might be disappointed. Yep. Anyway, this stuff is extremely easy to work, in case you didn't know. It's one of the best materials in the world for flint knapping, this Cobden stuff. Now, you may not think so, because you might have the worst Cobden in the world. It just, you happened upon the worst vein of Cobden that ever existed, and you're like the 1% of the 1% that has it, and you're looking at this and you're going, well, mine does not knap that way. I'm gonna tell all my buddies that I just saw a video and it didn't apply to Cobden in general, because it doesn't apply to mine. Don't do that, please. I'm not speaking in generalities. I'm just showing you the stuff that I have and with my personal experience. I know that I talk in generalities usually out of habit. Okay, and I say that my experiences are pretty common. Sometimes I've been known to say that in my experience, blah blah blah, and this is probably what most people encounter. I have said that before. I have taken that position. I'm trying not to do that anymore by emphasizing the fact that your results may vary. I emphasize it. I encourage people to follow up with me whenever they can, if they remember, so that I can correct myself or be updated. And I'm finding out that the differences aren't that great. They really aren't that big a deal in most cases, but in some cases it makes all the difference. And with my luck, those cases that make all the difference end up being what everybody's talking about. Yeah. Well, I know a guy that did blah 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 and watched your video, and he's telling everybody to blah blah blah. I'm not saying it in a nasty way. And I respond, yeah, unfortunately, with my luck, I happened upon an extremely nice piece of blah 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 or an extremely bad piece of blah blah blah, and I'm thinking it's the general state of things, and it's not. And everybody suffers. I don't want everyone to suffer. So, disclaimer, with the heat treating and with the Cobden and the Hornstone, I'm saying this is some of the best, or probably the best chert in the world. Yeah, your results may vary. You might think it's the worst stuff in the world. You might have inclusions like crystal pockets and stuff from Hades. And you don't know where these people are getting the good stuff, because you have not found any. Yep, it's understandable. Yep. I know it happens, because it happens to me. Oh yeah, and during my heat treat experiments that I'm currently engaging in, I think I showed you the thermostat. Where is it? I think I showed you the thermostat I bought at Academy, right? If not, I bought this at Academy for like $5. It goes up to 550 and it's metal, so it won't melt if you insert it into the lid of the turkey roaster to double check the temperature. I found out my turkey roaster is 100 degrees off between the dial on the turkey roaster and the reading on the thermostat. Like this morning I checked it and it was 100 degrees off. The turkey roaster said 350, the thermostat said 450. So instead of heat treating my rock at 350, I've been heating it at 450, at least today. Now, I have done that before with other turkey roasters, and they've been like 50 degrees or 25 degrees off. That's not so bad, but 100 degrees off, that's pretty bad. And that's the one I have now. I have the 100 degree off turkey roaster right now. Yep. Now, it could be off by 100 degrees because of the insulated lid. And the dial is, preset according to a lid that's not insulated. So it traps more heat than usual with insulation. So it's probably physically, according to physics, a proper phenomenon that is happening. Right? It's probably something that should be happening. But I didn't realize it could be that much off. If I had mentioned that the turkey roaster can be off from the thermostat before, if I mentioned it before, I might have said a value of like 50 degrees. I didn't realize it would be up to 100 degrees different. Yeah. So there you go. That's one thing that deserves mentioning. Another thing that deserves mentioning is the auctions are going to be on Mondays again, starting in January. It's now January, so there's an auction tomorrow, right? Today's Sunday, which means I got a lot of work to do. I went out of town again for 2 days, plus it cost me another day to do errands. So 3 days I've been out of the flint knapping and video loop. So I don't have much for the auction. Yeah, I said that I'd take 4 days off and 3 days on. But what I try to do is, during my days when I don't flint knap, at least I'll do one video, or I'll flint knap a little box of bifaces. One of these flat rate boxes during one of my days off from flint knapping, and it won't take me that long, and it'll help to add items to the auction. But this time I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any videos or any flint knapping on my days off, and I have to crunch in all the flint knapping in one day. So I got to work like a 12 to 16 hour day instead of a 6 to 8 hour day sitting and flint knapping and videoing. But it should settle down now. Cross my fingers. Should settle down to the point where I can get my shop into full swing. And not be interrupted. No interruptions. Why do I say it that way? It reminds me of Einstein, As he got older, he didn't like interruptions. That's my impression anyway, reading some of the biography stuff. All right. Okay. What was I going to say? I'm using aluminum to knap this Cobden. I'm trying to do bold flaking, which is fairly easy with this stuff, right? Because it's some of the best material in the world. Literally. You won't find much else better if you have a good quality piece, obviously. But I'm still finding it difficult to run the flakes that I'm planning on. And I'm not sure if it's because of embedded material in the flaker or what. A lot of times embedded material in the aluminum prevents the flakes from traveling because you lose energy. It starts to get all crusty and the force doesn't get imparted as well. I mean, it's not as solid, it's all kind of crusty, which compresses slightly before the full amount of force is delivered. So you're working with a smaller amount of force than you normally would. Which is a problem. It is a problem. And on this kind of stuff, on Hornstone and Cobden, the edges can get a bit crushy. And they look smooth, but they're not. They are crushy. I don't know how else to explain it. Not crumbly because they're not falling apart. They just get little micro cracks. And it seems that it's rough no matter what you do. I'm noticing that no matter how much I grind it, it still seems to be a little bit lumpy. So that also makes it harder to remove flakes, both in terms of you having to grind way too much, which makes it way too flat and way too smooth and way too rounded to grip. It's got to grip at least a little bit. And then the other extreme, it's just really lumpy and uneven. And when you hit it, it slows down the amount of force that you use because it's kind of crushing before the full force can do its thing. So you have to watch very closely. I'm seeing to watch very closely that the edge quality is really good. Otherwise, the surface of the Cobden is going to show all your mistakes. With good material, all the mistakes show up really good. Good material reveals your mistakes really well. Not only reveals your skill very well, but it accentuates your mistakes as well. Yeah. It can accentuate both your skill and your mistakes. So then why do people call it the best material in the world if it accentuates your mistakes? Shouldn't you be reserving that for something that's more forgiving? Well, yeah, if that's my criteria. But that forgivingness is not my criteria for how do I evaluate stone. Yeah, it's nice to have a stone that's very forgiving, so you know it's easy to prepare the edges, easy to strike off flakes, easy everything. But what makes it a good material is just the overall feel of it. Number one, if it's enjoyable to knap overall, which is a subjective thing. I can't give you a definition of what that means. And the fact that you can do many different things with it. You can notch it, you can serrate it, you can make it flat, you can make it thick, you can actually do a lot with it. It's consistent most of the time, so you can plan on making something and actually make something that you plan on. So my criteria is, how easy is it to make something that you're planning on making with that material? And yes, even though it's forgiving and it allows you to strike off flakes and all that kind of stuff, and allows you to notch and all that, sometimes it just doesn't feel easy to work, even though it's forgiving. And it's not easy to explain those things. They're subjective, because I might think this stuff is the best stuff in the world, and someone else might think, oh, no, that black butter obsidian is the best. I don't like Cobden at all. It just crushes on me, blah, blah, whatever. Subjective, yeah. It is a matter of opinion, I suppose. But after knapping many different materials, Hornstone and its related stones are my favorite. Yeah. Even though I'm in the land of Flint down here in Texas, the Texas stuff is not my top #1 favorite. Nope. Georgetown is good, but I don't like it sometimes because it just doesn't feel cooperative. A lot of times it makes me miserable. This stuff rarely makes me miserable. If I got a mistake, it's because me, basically. Yeah. But with Georgetown, which is probably my #2 pick, the high quality Georgetown, it just makes me miserable sometimes when I'm knapping it, because there'll be a defect that I didn't expect, or there's be a hard spot, or there's some weirdness to it, or there's a crack, or something will make me miserable. Now this one, unfortunately, I hit this horizontal punch, and then I hit the workpiece with this, and I made a mistake. Dang it. I actually hit the workpiece with this mallet. Thinking about Georgetown stuff. Oh, alright. I could have had 2 nice flakes if I didn't hit the workpiece with the mallet. So, just be aware, boys and girls. Pay attention to where the mallet is striking you. And try not to make these mistakes. I'm paying attention now to where the mallet is striking, and I'm not able to focus. I'm distracting myself by thinking about something else, about thinking about where I'm hitting this. I gotta make an extension to my tool so I don't have to try to do stupid stuff, like trying to pay attention to where this is striking. Any little defect in your technique will show up in the piece, in the workpiece, which is good because it'll teach you, but it's bad because you end up sometimes with nasty stuff like that and like this. Areas that are difficult to knap through because there's a stab fracture. So now you got to do damage control. Now I got to do damage control. I'm going to switch over. I like the aluminum, but I'm going to switch to steel. I had sharpened this steel earlier because I was working on a small arrowhead. But now I'm going to round it a little bit more to remove a little bit larger flakes. And yes, I can leave it nice and pointed to remove larger flakes, but I like it to be proportional. Why? I don't know. It's not necessary. Alrighty, so that took off a good flake. Almost overshot. It's long and narrow, yeah. So why am I not doing long and narrow flakes on other points? I know how to do it. Why don't I do it? Where are the Cody points? Cody. Where are the Edens and the Scots Bluffs? If I can do a flake like that, where are all the Edens and the Scots Bluffs and the parallel flaking? Where are they? Well, to do that over and over again requires time, both in the flint knapping and in the practice. See that? I thought I was going to do another one, but no. And I didn't do that on purpose because I hate those. I hate those going nowhere flakes. Now some of you were saying, you're getting the exact same bad results that I'm getting. That's why I wanted you to do these Cobden things. That's why I wanted to see it, because I'm having the same issues. Well, I hope it's helping you. If I was not talking, I would get different results probably. And I might be able to show you this better if I didn't have to talk about it. Yeah, but these flakes, are not acting well because I haven't adjusted to the steel yet. I know that's what it is because there's no other reason for it. I've napped this kind of stuff, especially the Hornstone, with steel many times. I'm getting this crushing stuff and all that because I'm not used to the steel right now. But as I get better with it, I can produce better flakes. So what I'm going to have to do is make the edges as perfect as possible, which is going to extend the video. Make it very long and tedious. I really don't have much time for these long and tedious explanations and videos. Oh well. So yeah, I gotta make the edge as perfect as I can according to my 10 years of experience, which means long and tedious, because I'm very, very detailed. Believe it or not. If I'm going to do it right, it's going to take forever. That's why I don't do it right. That's why I usually don't do it right. On purpose, because it takes forever. With me. I have not learned how to speed up the process of making the edges perfect. Because even if after I do a pass that looks like I made the edge strong, I'll look at it and I'm going to myself, nope, it could be a little bit better than that. So I go back and do it some more. Is it good now? Nope, I could do a little bit better than that. Where do I stop? I stop when I start to get to the point where I don't think I can do any better than that. And there's a lot of times there's no end in sight. I'll spend up to 4 hours on something of this size. How big is it? Let's see. It's only 2 5/8. It might look pretty big because my hands are very small, but this is a little bit over 2.5 inches, which is tiny. Some guys' hands are twice as big as mine, and this thing gets lost if they hold it in their hand, whereas it looks big in my hand. Yeah, I can spend up to 4 hours on something like this. I've been known to do it. I've been known to spend the whole entire day of napping on one point. If I don't want to do that, then I just do it the wrong way. Yep. Take shortcuts, hit imperfect platforms, or hit areas I know are going to crush, but oh well. Hit areas that I know I'm going to get a step fracture, but oh well. Hit with tools that I know are dull or not maintained properly, but oh well. I'll work on the middle instead of thinning the ends first. I won't take my own advice. I'll rush through things. I'll nap when I'm too tired. All this stuff just so I can get it done and make doo-doo with what I got. Yep. And if I'm working to specs with that method of making doo-doo whatever I got, if I got specs I need to meet, I'm going to waste a lot of material. Now you might say, well, wouldn't you waste less material even if you worked all day on one point that's a spec point? Wouldn't I make less waste? I've tried that before too. Be as careful as possible with each spec piece. And believe it or not, I break those also. If it wasn't for breakages, yeah, it would be better to be a perfect napper with every point. But I get breakages, which means that I just wasted all that time. And no, there gets to the point where you're not learning anything from the amount of time you're spending. You might say the more you spend, better you get. More time you spend, the better you get. No, it's not true. Sometimes you get sick of it and your skill goes downhill. Yeah. So, the moral of the story is, I nap the way I nap because it gives me the best results over time. Even though I don't get the best results when I micromanage. If you micromanage it, it looks like it's not good. But in the overall scheme of things, it yields more productivity. More ability to learn, because if I just don't sweat it too much, if I don't obsess over it, I continue to like doing it. I continue to produce items even though they might not be nice looking. It makes you continue down the road instead of stopping and saying, that's it. All right. And that goes for natural materials too. I almost got burnt out on using natural materials. Almost. I still like using them once in a while. But I was so intensely focused on using natural materials for so long that I almost got burnt out. And I almost got to the point where I got physically sick just looking at my natural tools. Yeah, it gets that bad. You get a stomach ache, headache, anxiety attack, all those things. just by looking at something that's given you a lot of stress in the past. All right. Now, why would someone get so intensely caught up in some sort of skill? Well, when you're convinced that it can tell you something about who you are as a living, breathing creature or living, breathing thing, yeah, it's very important to you. It's just part of who I am. I can learn from myself by understanding what this skill does to you. How it works, how you can make it work. Yeah, it becomes extremely important. That's what you want to try to understand. You want to try to understand who you are as a living, breathing thing. You do things that helped your development over time. And yeah, you can learn about who you are by doing this stuff. This kind of thing. These kind of skills that involve risk can tell you who you are, why you developed the way you developed. But they can also reveal those things that cause you a lot of stress. All right. I'm going to try to pressure flake some of this away instead of percussioning it. This side is pretty much percussioned the way I want. It's got slight defects, but I got the bold flaking that I wanted. Now I just got to clean up the tip on this side. I got bold flaking the way I wanted on that side, but I'm going to try to pressure flake these away, all these defects. Now, it might be smart for me to try to pick some of those off at this time. Yeah, let's see. Now, you might ask, in case you're still watching, what were the things about using natural tools that made you so upset and so burnt out and so sick of it? What were the things? Well, the main thing was the unpredictability. I just could not get consistency. You know, it's hard enough not to get consistency with your technique. If your tools are all over the place as far as consistency, it's even worse. It compounds it. It gets exponentially harder when you're working with tools that are inconsistent, as well as the material that you're trying to knap. You don't want to have to worry about the tools. If you can get material like copper or steel or aluminum that's consistent, you're taking one variable out of the equation, which makes the equation much less complex. Even that one variable really does make the whole process either a whole lot more complicated or a whole lot simpler. And in this case, the material of the tool itself can make the process very complicated or very much simplified. So that's what happened. I didn't start enjoying flint knapping, really start enjoying it, until I switched to metals. Because then I could just focus on the material itself, and that's what I wanted to do. Just focus on the material that I'm knapping to make the stuff I want to nap, to make the points that I want to make. just like other crafts, you know. I used to do lots of other stuff. I still do lots of other kinds of crafts, and I never really had to worry about the consistency of the tool itself, other than maybe the sharpness of the tools. Yep, you got to sharpen and maintain your tools and stuff, but you don't have to worry too much about them breaking, at least with hand tools. Yeah, electronics are a different thing, right? But you got to admit, if electronics fail on you, that's just one of the most miserable things that you can encounter as a craftsperson. The failure of your electronics. Well, same thing happens with failure on the natural material side. It's one of the most frustrating things ever. Can you imagine not being able to get good electronics? That's what it feels like, not being able to get good natural materials. Like all the antler you've gotten ever has never really stood up to the stone you're working, and it always falls short of being able to run long flakes or consistently pressure flake a regular pattern, because it wears down too fast, or it splits, or something happens to the material that messes up your whole day. You know, something happens to the tools material. It's like having your electronics fail when you're doing woodworking with modern tools. Imagine if your drill, as you're drilling into wood, starts to wobble, and you have to worry about the wobble and not being able to drill straight. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So yeah, like with the natural material tool, if you press off a nice flake, you want to be able to do that again, but you look at your natural tool tip, and that nice flake you just pushed off caused a big gouge in your tool tip. And so now you got to reshape your tool tip, and it's not going to be exactly the same shape, no matter how hard you try. Because if it's tapered, you're going to have to retaper the whole thing, and unless you have a pattern or some kind of jig to taper it the same way every time, like a pencil sharpener, it's not going to be tapered the same way each time. So the flexibility is going to be slightly different. The diameter of the very tip is going to be different. The rounding is going to be different. Everything's going to be different, and you're going to try to press off the exact same flake. And guess what? You're changing the initial conditions, which means you're going to change the flake. It's not going to work the same twice. Now you can say the same thing about metals. Yes, but they wear down less with less variability. So there you go. I'm not saying that the metals are better at certain tasks all the time. They can be. But what they are better at is consistency. The same every time. The same thing every time. So that you can work on your skill and not have to worry about these external variables. Just work on your skill, and that's it. Now you might say, well, working with the variables of the tools is part of your skill. Yeah, well, if it doesn't have to be, why add that in if you don't have to? Alright, so I'm trying to do damage control with pressure flaking, which works pretty well on this type of stuff. But with pressure flaking, I have to be very picky about the edges, because if I don't have a good edge to push on, it does not flake well, because it amplifies your mistakes. So the main moral of the story on working with this high quality stuff is that it will amplify your mistakes. If you're having trouble with it, that means you're making mistakes that might be small, but they become amplified because this material will expose it. Now, I'm not getting results that are all that great yet, right? I'm just in the process of preparing the edge for a pass that should clean up this mess. Okay, I'm going to do a pass either with percussion or pressure or both that should clean up this mess. All that time just now was spent regularizing the edge and trying to regularize the surface for flakes to go inward. I'm still regularizing the edge. I might install a slight curve into it because I need to remove a lot of mass from the underside, but I want it to be smooth. That's the important thing. Because that's what people ask me to do to produce a smooth effect. In other words, they don't want to see step fractures, they want to know how to avoid them. Yeah, that's a number one. After thinning, avoiding step fractures is a number one thing people want to see. The avoidance of step fractures. First it's thinning, and then it's the avoidance of step fractures. And I'm not sure which is number one. It could be the other way around, that they want to see the avoidance of step fractures first and foremost, and then they want to see thinning. I don't know which one is more important in the questions that I usually get overall in general. Other than where do you find material, they want to know how to avoid step fractures and how to thin. And then all the other questions follow from that. All right, so the final pass to get rid of these things is coming. I might have to do 2 final passes or 2.5, but I'm getting to the point where it's getting too thin to do much else. If I don't make it with these next few flakes and passes, that's it. I'm not going to be able to thin it anymore. See, that didn't fan out in that direction like it was supposed to. I put most of the pressure going that way, and it ended up fanning out that way because it doesn't want to thin that area. It doesn't want to. That's the best way to describe it. It just doesn't want to thin in that area. And it could be inconsistency in the material, or it could be just the contour of it. You know, I'm just not seeing a way in because there's too much concavity, too many dips in front of that obstacle. Everything seems to not want to travel because of the dips just before that obstacle, the concavities. Now some of you might be able to deal with that in some other way I haven't considered or whatever. I don't know. All I can do is try to flatten it out. Like picking on that front of that step fracture, just picking that away, and maybe another flake now into that area will flatten it. I don't know. Smooth it out. Maybe just another regularizing pass first with minute flakes so that there's convexity there. So create convexity before the obstacle by removing flakes on the surface here so that I can push off a strong flake into that area. Yeah. Same with this. Take off a series of flakes so that there's more convexity in front of the step fractures right there. So I don't know if I can push off a long enough flake to take these off from this side. It's possible that I could generate a flake that starts here and goes this way, but to plant a flake of that precision and to develop a surface for a flake of that precision is going to be greater than my skill level, probably. Yeah, I could run a flake from here somewhere, losing some of that tip, and run it down along that to get rid of those step fractures, but that's dicey because I don't have very many other flakes of that length. That's longer than all the other flakes that I've been generating, so that's just dicey. I could step right here in the middle and then I won't be able to get to it because the edge will be too thin to do damage control. It's very thin right now, and if I do anything deeper as far as step fractures go, I may not be able to run flakes inward to clear that without losing a lot of width. Right now I can lose a lot of width here, take a 1/16 of an inch off, right up, and go right up next to those step fractures and blow them away that way. But that would reduce the whole point down shorter. You know, losing even 1/8 of an inch off the tip makes the whole workpiece look much shorter. Even though you're only losing a little bit off the tip, it ends up looking much shorter. And when it does that, even though it's not that much shorter, it's just very discouraging if it looks a lot shorter. It's discouraging. And you get sick of it. The object is not to be sick of it. Try not to make it so that you get sick of it. Right? Right. Alright, so what did I end up doing? Well, I didn't take care of the problem exactly. Like, I didn't eliminate all the step fractures. There's still one there. Let's see. Right there. Right. There's still some remnant of that series of step fractures right there. So what I did was, I said to myself, I'm just going to pop some flakes into the area. There's still a remnant of the step fracture right there. And right there. Still a remnant of that series of step fractures, but this is almost like creating a camouflage technique where you just throw some branches on top. You're not covering the whole tent, you're just throwing some branches on top and it looks disguised. So these pop-outs kind of disguise the fact that there were steps all along that edge. So that's what I ended up doing. And I'll just leave it like that. Same over here. I just popped off some big flakes to disguise the fact that it was nasty. It doesn't look that bad, but I didn't cure it, so to speak. I didn't cure it of all the defects. I just kind of popped a few flakes to camouflage it and smooth it out a little bit. And to me, that's good enough. Yeah. Just like throwing a little bit of camouflage over your deer blind or your bivouac or whatever, your tent. It's good enough. Unless you scrutinize it really, really closely, you can't really tell. You can't tell it's there. Right? Right. So that's what I did in that particular case. It's an expedient method. Because I was starting to get sick of it. So I just took care of it that way. All right. So now I just regularize the edge. Or I can even be sharpening it. Yeah. The only other thing to do is the notches, other than the sharpening. It's already thin enough for me. Straight enough and thin enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. Although I could easily spend another hour on it. Easily. Just to get it even smoother. And maybe even some what looks like a series of patterned flaking. I'm not going to. I'm just going to strategically pop out flakes. I don't know if strategically is the right word, but I'm just going to discreetly, I don't know. Come on. It's not even working. There it goes. These are sharpening flakes now. Just creating a sharp edge. Let's see. Can you see? I should probably turn up. I can't see very well. I forgot to turn up the display as far as the light. I usually put the display on manual mode and not automatic adjustment. I don't think I turned it up. Sun's going down, so it's getting darker in the shop. I actually need more light in my display instead of less. Usually as the light goes down or fades, you need less light on your display, but in my case here, I need more light. Because I'm getting into finer and finer detail. I would need less light if it's eye strain. If I'm worried about eye strain as far as the intensity of the light. But I need intense light when I get down to the nitty-gritty. It does grind down, or it does abrade well. That I will give it that. But the edges often they don't cooperate. Maybe I need a finer abrading stone so that the edges don't crush while I'm abrading. Yeah, right. Drop it on something and break the tip off. That'd be good. I kind of like using these abraders better than the sander, even though it's slower. Yeah. I have to worry less about the stone fragments ruining my file or sander. Nice. I'm finally getting used to the stone, and I'm already going to have to wrap it up. Yep. Okay. I always end up making corner notches out of this stuff. Corner notch points. Yep. One of these days I'll get out the vertical punch. One of these days. What am I doing? I am preparing the barbs because they're going to be clipped barbs. You'll see. In order for those clip barbs to look right, I've got to constrict the sides just above the barbs. Why am I using the spatula tool and not the other pressure flaker? Because I'm just modifying the shape. I'm not trying to thin. I'm just modifying the shape of the edge. I'm not trying to thin it down. All right, here we go. Why am I taking down the sides? You'll see. See, that pop out almost took off that barb. So that means I'm pushing a little bit too hard. But it didn't ruin it, which is lucky. Lucky, lucky. All right, so it's just a matter of crunching these notches in after I got the preliminary shape done on the sides. I just got that flake in my mouth. The only step now is to just crunch in the notches. And there's not much to explain. I just need a good pop out every now and then. So it looks good. So it looks like it's not stalled. Yeah, stalled notches don't look good. All right, do I have symmetry? I don't have much by way of symmetry. I'll just make doo-doo with what I got. Nice little pop out. Which makes it thin for the pop out on the other side. So I can continue. A nice little pop out. You know, dull the edge so that you can push hard against it for the nice pop outs. So to work on the symmetry a little bit, I'm going to have to remove this edge here a little bit. All right. Now while I'm doing this, I got to make sure it remains sharp. I don't know what it is, but the lighting is not really good. And let's see. too much mess down here. So now it's a little more symmetrical, although I could take down this side some more. Yeah, and strike into this lumpy, thicker area up top here. But why mess up a nice smooth surface? Because I might end up with a step fracture right in the middle. But we'll see. I could just dull it and then send in some good pressure flakes. Yeah. I still need to remove more from this side to make it symmetrical, so I'm just going to dull it for a pass of pressure flaking. In a perfect world, I might put serrations in it, but I'm already getting worn out on this particular point. I want to move on to the next thing. Just going to do a series of pressure flakes, hopefully not too many step fractures. That was a nice big old flake. That was a big old pressure flake, bigger than I was expecting. Yeah, very nice. If it's bigger than I expect, there's no way I can duplicate it. Usually. I can't say, well, now, if I did it once, I can do it 100 times, right? Wrong. I think that was luck. All right, so I'm looking for the dull areas. I could use either the spatula tool or the rounded point tool. Sometimes I am removing some of the edge just so I can straighten it or whatever. But usually this procedure is just eliminating thick spots. I try not to install that kind of thing. Try not to. Yeah, I try to get rid of it, and that's what happens. I probably would have done better with the spatula tool. Let's see. So let's switch over. So I'm not going to be stupid again. The spatula tool does not as easily install step fractures and other mishaps as a rounded tip tool, in my experience. Ugh. Of course, I say that, and there it goes. It slipped. I pushed and slipped inward, and I couldn't stop myself from applying the force, so it took too much. Yeah, but that rarely happens, luckily. It's extremely frustrating when it does happen, when I've been taking all this time to avoid that. But it does happen. And of course, it happened on this one. Because I'm pushing downward. It shouldn't be sliding across the surface. It was either some kind of weird muscle spasm or something that caused it. it slipped a little bit and I just couldn't control it. So now it looks weird to me. All right, here we go. Trying to correct the weirdness now. You might be saying, well, you could take this opportunity to put serrations in. I'm just trying to keep my head above water and survive this pass so that I don't put more of those bites into the side. Heck with the serrations right now. I'm just trying to survive. See, there's already kind of a curve going on, curving downward. I don't want to make it worse. I gotta get rid of the weirdness. It still looks kind of weird. Alright, so almost done. The hard part about this was just adjusting to the new material. Yeah, even high quality materials take time to get used to. And I gotta go by memory on the base here. I think these were rounded. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to make it a little bit less rounded just so I can thin it down. And maybe make the base a little bit more attractive. Let's see. Do I need to thin it? Is it thick? It's not that thick. Should I send in some more flakes? Let's see. I can a little bit here on this side. It's a little bit thicker on this side. Right here. I can send in flakes right there. It also needs some symmetry adjustment on that side. So inward and downward, mostly downward pressure, except that one I pushed inward quite a bit. I don't know how carefully made the bases were on these, so I'm just going to leave it. You know, like a corner notched, resharpened, right? Let's see. I end up doing a lot of these. Now I can't remember if the bases are straight on these or not, but I'm just going to leave it. Because I like the color difference, right? And also because I can't remember. Now, I have a tablet that I could be using, and I'm going to start using my tablet in my videos to bring up points from the internet to compare, so I don't have to be guessing. I can look at photos. So there it is. I think I've done the Cobden thing. I tried to get it straight and smooth, although I can feel little sharp areas, but this side's pretty smooth. But you know, you could take an abrader, like another stone, not one of those artificial abraders, but another flake or something in this. Rub the surface gently, not really hard. Gently to knock off all those little points of rock sticking up. Yeah, I think that they used to do that because a lot of the artifacts feel smooth. And I don't know if it's because of the age or they intentionally just rubbed it a little bit. Anyway, this will be available in the auction. If it's not Cobden, someone let me know. And I'll make the adjustment and the correction. But there it is. Now I'm going to get back to making bifaces. Alrighty.